Well, hello. My name is Brenda Mathis. I'm an assistant professor at Lesley University in the School of Education in the Technology and Education Division. And I'm also president of Mathis Brothers Software Pathology. And we examine websites and software for unfair outcomes. And the lecture that I'll be giving is about biases in software and websites, really looking at what I call the other side of the screen. You know, what's on the other side of this screen? Who are the people who make the decisions, and what are decisions are made about the design and how it affects us as users? There are about 3 key points I'm going to bring up in the lecture. The first one talks about text and graphics. Now, text and graphics is a very, very big issue because it affects most everyone who uses software and websites. What I'm talking about is basically about accessibility for those who need to have bigger text, those who have low vision, and those who are blind. One of the major issues about websites is that they become more and more graphic oriented. So there's more pictures, and that's very wonderful, except if you can't see them or if you just can't navigate through them. And many, many people, not only in the United States but in other countries, use text-to-speech readers. When you have a text-to-speech reader and it comes across a website that has graphics, most likely it's not going to be able to read those graphics. It'll just say graphics. So you really don't know what's going on. But if you have a website that has a picture with graphics and then there's text information hidden behind the graphics, so that the text reader, speech-to-text reader, knows and says to you, oh, this is a beautiful picture. He won't say oh, but he'll say it's a picture of the Thames in London. Then that really helps that person understand what's going on, and also the person who has vision can see what's going on. Another alternative to that issue is having 2 versions, a text version and a graphics version. Let me show an example of that. One of the people who've done a good job about that is Stephen Hawking, the famous scientist. Now, before you go to his website, he has this page that says, "Welcome to Professor Stephen W. Hawking's web pages." And these pages have been designed to make access to the information as straightforward as possible. This is a very key statement because he's actually saying to you explicitly, we know what the issues are, and we want to make sure that you get the information that's best for you. Partly because Stephen Hawking is disabled himself and has a lot of accessible tools to help him. I think he's also thinking about that audience. But many other people are also thinking in the same way. So let's look what happens when you go to the graphic version. You have the graphic version, and you have all the pictures and all the beautiful graphics and hyperlinks, which you probably would not be able to use if you have a vision impairment or are blind, or and actually the text is very small too. I have to write to them about that. However, if you go to the text only version here, and you see it's all in text, and I apologize to you, my text-to-speech software is not working today, but I'll show you an example of this in the lecture itself. But what will happen is that the text-to-speech reader will read each of these lines and read it out loud, and the person will be able to see and hear everything that's on the graphic part of that page. So that's a wonderful thing. Another important issue is language, and there are 2 issues about language. One in terms of software, one in terms of websites. In terms of websites, most websites are in English because most of the websites are based in the United States. But there are many, many more websites coming up in different parts of the world, and they want to make sure that they address English speaking audiences as well as their own audiences. So many websites are now becoming bilingual, trilingual, multilingual. You'll find many websites that have different languages. Most of those websites are not based in the United States. So the point is that if you have a website, remember that many of your audience members are not in the United States. There are many people surfing that are not in the U.S., and also many people in the U.S. who actually have different languages that as their mother languages and would be greatly appreciative of having a website that has information in different languages for them. This is a very key issue. It also talks about a digital divide and accessibility, which we'll talk about a little bit in the class as well. Another issue about language is software. Now, let me give you a specific example. In the recent years, I've been researching educational software for children. And several years ago, I did a small study about educational software for children, the top 10 selling software in school in the math category. Of those top 10 software titles, all of them didn't have English and another language. They only had one language. And then if they did have another language, it was not totally in that second language. It will be in Spanish, and it will, maybe will have French, but it will have English for navigation. So that sent the message that, you know, it's not fully bilingual, and maybe you really don't need to have everything in Spanish or English, or maybe it was perhaps an oversight, but it happens all the time. So it's sort of the key issue for children to make sure, and for adults actually, to make sure that when you use a software that has more than one language, that it has to be completely in each language. Another issue about software is about gender, and specifically about educational software. Gender is a big issue. In the same study, I looked at the top 10 selling math software and found that most of the titles did not have girls represented, or girls were represented in an ancillary way. They were in the background, but they were not part of the action. They were not speaking. They were just really graphics. And so this sent a message to young girls, especially in such a crucial situation where children going into 6th grade are starting to have more interest in different topics, and girls generally check out of math. But here you have math software that does not show girls participating in math, and that sends a message. So there's a bias there. There's a bias toward boys or a bias against girls there. And so you have to look at a lot of different things for websites and software. You have to look at gender, you have to look at nationality, language, accessibility, so many different issues. So the question becomes, how do you address all of these issues? How do you know about them? One of the exciting things about the answer to that question is that many software designers, software developers, web designers are now being specifically trained either in the workplace or in educational institutions on how to support different types of users by design, and also to look at the ethics behind the design, not only the graphical interface, but also what is the logic in the software. The other issue, the other big important change that's happening is the consumers are starting to become more aware. Parents and teachers and just general consumers are looking at, what does this software offer me? If I'm speaking Spanish and English, is the software in Spanish and English? If I'm going to use this for my child, are there different types of children being represented? I have several parents who come to me on a regular basis asking me, what software is out there that will be fun for my child, but also is not biased toward just having, you know, just kids of one nationality represented. I want my child to be of the world in real life, and I want them to be of the world when they use the software. What's out there? So people are becoming more and more aware of this, and we're going to talk about this and other issues in the class, and I look forward to having a conversation with you. I'll see you then.